Well, that was interesting. How's it going, guys? Mr. Holton here, and I just now finished watching the first episode of the Halo TV series by Paramount. What did I think about it? The reason why I'm making this video, by the way, is because, I am a pretty huge fan of Mass Effect, and Mass Effect is somewhat related to Halo in the fact that they're both sci-fi universes. They're pretty fantastical, huge universes. They're similar in some ways, and there's even a Mass Effect Easter egg in this episode, which is, it was pretty cool, even if it was just very brief. But I just want to talk about this because we know that Mass Effect is getting its own TV show. And since this is the first major video game TV series that is entirely based on a video game, it wouldn't surprise me if the writers for the Mass Effect TV show or maybe the God of War TV show take some inspiration and some pointers from this TV series. And that worries me. I really hope they don't. For some things, there are some things that are actually pretty cool in this first episode. And it is just the first episode. So, I can't really say, oh, this TV series is absolute crap because I've just watched the first one. But so far, let's just break it down, okay? So the entire intro is placed on this planet called Madrigal that's a heavy water extraction planet. And the little that I do know from the novels or the books is that there are these break-off civilizations from the main humanity, the so-called UNSC, which are basically like the United Nations of Earth. These breakaway civilizations on other planets, they don't want anything to do with the UNSC. And that's basically where this starts off, is that we know that they don't like the UNSC very much. And that includes the Spartans, like Master Chief, right? Anyway, what happens is in this episode is that we see this girl. I can't even remember her name, but she's the daughter of the leader of this this sort of outpost, right? And she's she's a youngster. She goes out with her friends and harvests some sort of drug that they're all gonna take and gonna trip, and then they encounter. Well, they find a ship, or she finds a ship that belongs to the Covenant because they're searching for something on the planet. And of course, the Covenant is, the main alien sort of faction that you're fighting against in the Halo games. And mind you, again, I'm just basing this off my knowledge of the games. I don't know like a lot of stuff around the novels. There are bits and pieces that I know of, but not a lot. But anyway, so this is the first time like people from this outpost on this planet encounter the Covenant and the Sangeli, of course, the pretty famous main antagonist, so to speak, or the foot soldiers of the Covenant. And I like the encounter. It's pretty cool seeing them facing up against this enemy that's so clearly overpowered compared to this somewhat tribal human tribe. They have technology, of course. They have like miniguns and shit. Of course, that doesn't help because the Covenant Sangeli, they invade this outpost because they're chasing after the girl who discovered them. And this outpost gets completely demolished, right? It's pretty cool. Like the fight scene, this battle for the outpost is pretty cool, but that's also one thing that I was like super surprised by, is that it's pretty gory. And that's not what I was expecting from a Halo TV series. It's sure you see blood, and sure you see like especially for like the flood when they like arrive there, it's sort of like this disgusting, they're these they're sort of gory but not in the traditional way. They're disgusting slimy bacteria, I guess. But when it comes to like the fight scenes here, you see like limbs blown off, people get cut in half, it's like blood everywhere, and it's like, whoa, it's hard to get used to because you don't see that much in Halo. And when it happens, it kind of blew me away. I was like, whoa, oh. Like, I know we can disintegrate like aliens in Halo in the games, but not in the way you know, and we see blood and stuff like it's just it's so weird, you know. And it's one of those things that I was like, oh, okay, I guess this has to happen because if we are to represent this in a sort of live action setting, we kind of have to see some form of gore because it would be very like unrealistic if we were actually, you know, firing plasma beams to, you know, flesh. Of course it's gonna like melt off or it's gonna, you know, cut you in half. So yeah, in that way I understand why they did it. That's not really a complaint for me. It's pretty cool seeing it, but it's also very weird. Like, times takes some time getting used to, I guess. And then of course, you know, finally Master Chief shows up. He lands down. They just drop him off, and I'm like, well, this this is Halo, because that's usually what it is, you know. Halo. I mean, Master Chief. He just drops in and starts finishing and cleaning up the entire outpost. But of course, he needs help. So there are other Spartans that are dropping down that help him. And I like their team. I mean, there's not so much teamwork there, but it's pretty cool. You also see this, you know, there's the traditional blue team that we remember from the games. They're not there. It's silver team, and they're supposed to represent sort of versions of what the ones we've seen in the game. And I mean, they're all right. I have no complaints about the Spartans themselves. And they show up, you know, to help him clean up the entire outpost. And then we have this girl, of course, who survives the entire, you know, disaster, the entire onslaught. Well, now it's basically about her. So I guess this entire like intro was sort of a setup that tells us that she's gonna be probably like the secondary main character next to Master Chief. Anyway, then we cut to the UNSC headquarters, or the headquarters on Reach, and we see Catherine, right, Halsey, the creator of Cortana and Master Chief and the Spartans. It's strange seeing her not speaking in an American accent, because that's also something you're used to in the games. She has an American accent, but here she's British, and I guess, you know, that kind of works. It doesn't really matter much. It's just, again, weird. But that's also like, there are some things in this series that are like, they've switched things up in order to not make it the exact same thing, but then they do change some things here that are just, some things they just kind of missed the point with a couple of things here. And it's very apparent that the writers haven't played the games, and they even said so, you know. The writers themselves haven't played the games, which also is very, you know, visible, because they don't, there's such a hard time understanding some choices here. But anyway, let's continue on with the entire Reach thing. Oh, but I gotta jump back for just a moment, because a few minutes after we arrive on Reach, we have this thing that's happening, you know, in a sort of tunnel in the mine that the Covenant were, you know, they were investigating. And in this mine, there's a Covenant artifact. And that's another thing, is like, oh, that's a pretty huge change, because the Covenant, or it's not a Covenant artifact, it's a Forerunner artifact, actually. And it's super strange, because the Forerunner technology wasn't introduced until, you know, Halo 4 or 5. You know, we didn't see this type of technology until then. That wasn't in the first 3 games at all. So it's clearly not based around the around the games. It's just really not. There are elements that we see, of course, from the games that take place, but such as this, like this Forerunner thingy, and when Master Chief touches it, because he's got to retrieve this artifact that the Covenant were studying, because they want to understand the Covenant, and when he touches it, he sees like these memories of himself when he was a kid, and he starts wondering like, oh, am I, you know, are those memories real, or are they fake? What's going on here? Anyway, then we cut back to, you know, him. Anyway, by the way, he sends away his Covenant, or his Spartan team, so they go back to Reach, while he stays with the girl and brings her in on the Pelican, and then he brings the artifact with him because he wants to study it, supposedly. And of course, that breaks against protocol and all that, and they start getting suspicious back at Reach because he wants to, he breaks away from protocol. And that when we are at Reach, finally, we have this sort of entire setup thing about the UNSC not being in terms with each other, like Catherine Halsey. She's not being on terms with the I don't know who she was, like this general lady kind of person. She's supposedly like the commander or something over Halsey. I'm not sure if she's an actual lore character, if she's from the games or not, but she doesn't seem to like Catherine very much, and like the leadership over at the UNSC doesn't really seem to like her at all, except for the fact that she brought them the Spartans. So they're like, oh, that's pretty cool, I guess. The thing that really got me weirded out, the first thing that really got me thinking, oh, okay, they're not at all pulling from the games. And that's when we go to High Charity. And that's crazy because you're like, I never thought we'd actually see High Charity in a live action setting. It's this like huge base for the Covenant. It's their main base of operations. It's where they're like all their leaders sit. It's where the prophets sit. There are 3 prophets, and we have the prophet Mercy right here. And I thought, oh shit, we're gonna see the prophets finally. Nice. It's gonna be it's gonna be nice. It's like seeing a reflection of them in this live action TV series. And then we proceed with the scene, and we get to this person that's sitting in a chair, and you don't at first see this person, but this person is like sitting there talking about this sort of artifact, la la la. I can't remember, but when this person gets up from this chair, at first like, wait, are they speaking? What is this language? I don't remember it even hearing something like that in the Halo games. But anyway, of course they had to like make a new language to make it believable. But anyway, this person stands up, and I shit you not, it's a human. And I was like, what the hell is going on here? That's the like strangest thing, is that when you first think about it, it's like there's no way that a prophet would ever listen to a human in any way whatsoever. And having this person be a sort of leadership position over Mercy, the prophet. And it just got me like, what is going on here? It felt so weird and strange. And I see that they're trying to explain it. They're probably going to, of course, they're going to like, make it a bigger thing later on, but it's still super strange. And it's one of those things that I felt right away that I didn't like at all. I was like, this, like, like the whole, their motivations, of course, the prophets, their motivations are that they want to activate the Halo rings, of course, and they want to do it by any means necessary. So of course there might be a good reason for them to accept her. She seems to be able to read Forerunner artifacts and stuff like that. So maybe it's going to be a cool thing. But that's one of the major things that I was immediately like, I don't like where this is going, because it's just. And then we cut back to the Pelican, where this girl is, and Master Chief. And then we have, of course, Miranda Keyes, who's the daughter of Catherine Halsey, or Halsey, and she tries to ask this girl that's on the ship to kind of help them, speak to the other colonies that don't want anything to do with the UNSC, because they want to like get as much help probably to fight against the Covenant and to spread the news that this is going on and it's going to happen to more colonies. But for some reason, like, of course, spoilers, a little late for that. But this girl, who I can't remember the name of, she gets pissed off by the offer to help them, because her mother was supposedly killed by the UNSC. More on that later, but she basically tells them to shove it, and I don't know. Of course, he didn't really understand her motivations by then until the end of the episode, but I still was like, oh man, I don't like this girl. She's she like this. Miranda right here tried to help her, or get her to help her in order to help her. I don't know, but it's just, I could understand her side of things, but then when you switch to this girl and her motivations for it's like, what? Why are you being such a piece of shit? And then, of course, we get more on that later. But at first, it was like, oh, okay, that's super strange. I don't like her. And then we have the fact that Master Chief seems to be like, disabling functions of his suit and stuff, which, of course, the UNSC panic for. They get panicked. We also have a bunch of like scenes between Miranda and her father Jacob. It's a lot of family dynamics, drama, la la la. I guess you kind of need that for a show like this. I'm not sure. Not for me though. I would be fine with just following Master Chief. And then we have the back and forth between Master Chief and the girl again, and she of course doesn't trust him, and he tries to seem human. He even tries to make a joke once, and that's also one of those things I was like, I can't remember for the life of me any time that Master Chief really tried to have a longer conversation. That's something like kind of slightly bothered me. It's like, okay, here's the thing with Master Chief. It is my firm belief, okay, that you don't need to always have a bunch of dialogue to make somebody likable or human. I'm taking this as an example because this scene kind of slightly bothered me when they just kept talking and he tried to make jokes, and it just seemed so out of character from Master Chief. And I instantly thought back to the prequel Star Wars movies, because one thing that George Lucas did really well, was this scene when Anakin is like looking out this window on Coruscant, and you have a Padme on this somewhere else, and they're like thinking of each other. You hear this music swelling, and you can see their facial expressions, and just you can understand the scene and the pain they're going through because Anakin is falling to the dark side, right? And that's like one of those things that George Lucas kind of screwed up with the old movies when he started like, improving them with the new digital editions and added 3D effects and stuff like that. He started like trying to explain away like certain scenes that just felt completely unnecessary. One thing that I'm thinking back of is like when Darth Vader, when he realizes that Padme has died, he goes, the classical no. And I was like, you didn't need to add that because you could already understand that he was in pain. It doesn't need to be this overly dramatic. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from when I'm thinking about the back and forth between this girl and Master Chief. It's like they're trying way too hard for him to seem human. And it's one of those things that I could understand the motivation for doing so, adding this kind of back and forth between them in order to make him seem more human. Because I don't think that the guy who plays Master Chief in the series, his voice is just not, we can probably all admit that his voice is just, it's not really Master Chief. We've played, what is it now, like 6 games with Master Chief, and we've heard his voice so much, and he is so iconic, and his voice is still so human when you hear him in the games. It's enough that you don't need to see his face. That's kind of where I'm coming with this, is that you don't need to see Master Chief's face, because that's what they do in this show, is that in order to build like a more human connection with this girl, because she doesn't trust him, he takes off his helmet. And I was first, oh, okay, they're going to cut away. They're going to do it like in the, the ending of Halo 3. Oh, we're not going to see his, or Halo 4 is it, I think. We are not going to see his face. We're just going to see his eyes. So we get a, so we understand that there's a connection between them. But no, they show his face. Of course, like everybody knew who the actor was, that being Pablo Schreiber, if that's the name I'm pronouncing that right. So everybody knew what he looks like. And I'm gonna be honest, the strange sensation was this, that I'd imagine that Master Chief would look something like Pablo does, with this kind of very masculine face, a little bit, of a broad nose and all that. He looks like a Marine. I guess he kind of looks like what I would imagine Master Chief looking like. So it's not a problem there. The problem is the fact that they show his face at all. But then I also understand that they kind of had to do that because Pablo's voice is not as heavy, or it doesn't have the same presence as Steve Downes, you know? And I guess that's the thing that bothered me most, I guess, with this TV show, is that they decided to do that. But I understand at the same time that they kind of had to. But it still kind of sucks and kills me. Because that means they have to change a lot of, you know, the characterization of Master Chief, because as soon as he takes off his helmet, he starts like he had this very, you know, this kind of coarse voice when he had his helmet on, but then he took it off and he sounds like a regular guy. And he's not trying as hard. He's like just talking normally, and is like not this kind of macho, you know. It's super strange, and it took me out of it because it really felt like he was faking it when I was thinking about it. Anyway, so shit goes down. The Pelican, you know, if you've seen it already, you know what happens. The Pelican that they're in, it's automatically piloting towards Reach, and since they want to kill the girl, you know, the UNSC, and they kind of want to place Chief under custody, they're fighting to take control of the ship, and that's basically where the episode ends up. They're just basically trying to stop the ship from going to Reach. And just before it lands on Reach, they manage to activate it with the help of this Forerunner tech. And so, you know, they escape. And that's that, okay? So yeah, as you can hear, like, I'm super conflicted. I'm not really sure what I think, and this is why I had this thumbnail of, you know, Shepard looking worried, because I am worried that if this becomes sort of like if they use this show for reference, and I've seen like Angry Joe's review of this TV show already, and he's seen 2 episodes, and he says the second episode is even like it's worse. It's way worse than the first episode, because the first episode is actually pretty solid, to be honest. I was at first really hesitant to even say that I wanted to see this, because I'd heard of everything that happened. But then when I watched it, I was like, oh, it's actually pretty solid. There's pretty cool effects. You know, sometimes it kind of feels like a YouTube video. Like the effects can be somewhat and then other times you see, you know, like the Sangeli, when they're like stomping towards like when they blow the gates up at the start, and then they start working in massacre, and, you know, everybody, that was pretty cool. The gore effects, you know, all the blood and stuff like that, it's pretty cool, pretty realistic. And then, of course, you know, when Master Chief and all the Spartans start killing all the Sangeli, that's pretty cool. But then also we had a lot of, you know, sort of PlayStation 3 graphics, kind of. They really, it's really visible when they had to like pick and choose for certain moments where to spend the most money. And the reason why I'm so worried is because it's very obvious to me that they're not going to follow the traditional Halo storyline. At least that's what it looks like here. There are elements that are in the story that are from the games, and probably mostly from the novels and the books. But as a primarily video game Halo fan, I think a lot of people are going to agree with me that this is going to be really difficult for a lot of, you know, gaming fans. Halo is a game series. It's not a novel series. And it doesn't matter how much you tell me that the novels add extra stuff. The novels are not what I'm looking for when I'm looking for stories, when I'm looking for, you know, the games is what started it all, right? And just because novels and books and stuff like that, they add to a universe, it doesn't mean that you would have to, you know, read these in order to understand the full story or get, you know, or relate to stuff. You should have the games as a primary, you know, storytelling vehicle. And that's where I think a lot of people are pissed about because there's so much vitriol going on right now. And I do understand it kind of, because even if I myself don't want to be this kind of toxic fan, I still agree with a lot of the criticism, because it's just like Henry Cavill said, when people were like pissed at the Witcher TV series. And he was like, I don't consider fans toxic. I consider them very passionate. And I agree, like a lot of people are very passionate about the Halo universe. And me just being a casual fan, I don't even know all the stuff going on in Halo. I'm not very disappointed, but I'm kind of disappointed because I expected something that was more equal to the source material. And I've heard the arguments like, then why don't you just go and play the games? Yeah, most people just want to see a live action representation of a game. That's mostly what people are asking for. And sure, you could play the games, but wouldn't it be easier if you could just tell the entire Halo story? Because it is pretty good from start to, well, wherever we are now. We're not finished with the Halo story yet. But from there to there, it's pretty damn good. And you're gonna upset a lot of people by changing a lot of stuff. And it feels like they're really changing a lot of things that people are used to. That's why I'm kind of worried for Mass Effect, because if this sets the precedent, or precedence, or whatever you say there, sorry, I'm Swedish, most of you know that already, but if this sets a precedent for how video game TV shows are made, then I am very worried about Mass Effect, because I don't want it to turn into this thing where they start changing origin stories kind of, and doing stuff that is not in the spirit of the games. I'm just super conflicted. And I guess when it comes back to like Mass Effect, it's just like, oh, what are they gonna, like, what choices are they gonna make canon? Are they gonna go with a female Shep or a male Shep? Are they not gonna talk about Shepard at all? But if they're not gonna have Shepard in the universe, where it's gonna be placed? If they're gonna have Shepard in the TV show, then how much are they gonna change? Because are they going to start changing out origin stories? Are they going to change out, typical Shepard characteristics, squad mates? Are they going to start introducing new people that we never met? And while I understand that, but they got to do something different, it's just, it's the same with people that have read books and they want to see TV shows or movies that are based on these books. Just looking at the Wheel of Time, even if that was a very watched show, the fans, whoa. Oh my God, they've been critical, because there's a lot of stuff that has just changed from the books, and people just generally want a, somewhat accurate representation of the books or the game. And I kind of feel like we didn't really get that with this first episode. As I said in the beginning of this video, of course, I haven't seen more than the first episode, as most of you guys have. Anyway, that's kind of my reaction. I'm sorry, this turned into a weird rant video. But I just want to say I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm kind of disappointed. I don't know. What do you guys think? Maybe you loved it. I don't know. But yeah. I'm definitely gonna watch the next episode, of course. Just worried what's gonna, happen. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Mr. Olton, signing out.